Hi, this is Kimberly Rod Baker, Chief Career Storyteller at This Little Brand and MovingOnUpResumes.com. I just read Brene Brown's new book, Rising Greatly, and just like everything Brene Brown does, it was really enlightening and gave a lot of tools, and she's really walking her talk in terms of telling people that living wholeheartedly is about being vulnerable, because she shares a lot of her personal foibles and missteps in this as examples of what it's like to fall down and rise up again out of really getting your face planted in the dirt and the muck. And there is one tool in there that I just love, and it's called, it's a play on Anne Lamont's shitty first draft. Like, just when as a writer you just gotta get the thing out, and she calls it a shitty first draft, SFD for short. And Brene, when she's using this with her children, calls it a stormy first draft, so it still gets to be SFD. But in the case of being vulnerable and interacting with other human beings and understanding what events mean to you and how you should move forward and rise up out of kind of getting smacked in the face, how she uses that shitty first draft, that SFD, is when something happens, you know, we all have a story that's in our head, but if we don't realize it, we don't realize what the story is, we can't verify whether or not that's true. So she tells a story about going swimming with her husband, and she made this, move to be close and say how wonderful it was, and he was not very responsive. She made a bid for love and he didn't really respond. He was distracted, seemingly. And she made up a story. Her shitty first draft was that she doesn't look good in a Speedo anymore, and she can't swim that well, and he's this great swimmer, and he doesn't see her as valuable, and she's, a lot of shame was coming up. So that was her shitty first draft, was, and so what she says is, when you have that thought, what you can take, if you have this, you can either use it on your own to process things, or if you're in an environment or a relationship where you share this language and this concept, you can tell the person, what I'm making up in my head right now is that I look fat in a Speedo and I can't keep up with you, and you're even wondering what you're doing married to me, in the case of Brene's story. And then that person, whether it's you in your head or you have a relationship where you can say, this is what I'm making up in my head, is it like, what's really the story? Because otherwise I'm going to go nuts. Then you have the opportunity to bring it out into light and find out what's really happening. And I actually had that happen with a client today, where she's a longtime client, a repeat client. She opened the draft of the new bio I sent her and was like, oh, no, this is horrible. I can't even, she closed it and didn't open it again for a couple weeks. And finally, when she sent me the edits and we discussed it, what it turned out to be was really a couple of things. One is that the order of the facts and exactly how they're presented, there was room for improvement there, but that most of what was there was right. We just needed to switch things around. But what had really come up for her, more than just these simple edits, was it was the first time that she was presenting that she had an illness to the public. And it's related to the job that she does, but it was scary for her to feel so exposed, and it brought up a lot of trauma that she had, because she's always had this problem since she was a child. A lot of the trauma that she had in terms of being perceived as different by people around her. And it occurred to me that with these tools, this tool from Brene Brown, it would have been easy for her to say, okay, the story I'm making up in my head right now is that because my health problem is presented first in here, I'm going to be ostracized, and like I was when I was a child, or like I felt when I was a child. And I think the real story was not And, the real story is what it should be. It shouldn't be like, oh no, you won't be ostracized. Nobody will care. The real story is, wow, of course you have trauma connected to that, and some people may like it and some people may not. There really is an editing issue that needs to happen here, because as it turns out when we talk through it, for presenting her, it's more effective to bring that in more subtly and later in the draft. But the real story is much more manageable than, no one's going to like me and I'm going to be ostracized. But we can't get to that point unless you do that. And she must have done some version of that in her own head to be able to come back and edit it. And it's something that I had to do from my end when, this dear client didn't like her bio, and so I had to kind of say, okay, the story I'm telling myself right now is that I'm a terrible writer, and this person I value is not going to like me, and she's going to think that her money wasn't well spent, and and I had to get that story out of my head so that I could get to the real story, which was that just needed some nipping and tucking and moving around to be fantastic. So if there's a situation that has you feeling shame, feeling like you're not enough, feeling like someone has wronged you, and it's a new situation and it's raw, really clarify for yourself, what is the story I'm telling myself in my head? Why is this having such an effect on me? And you can then examine that story yourself and see if you think it could be true. If you have a relationship with the person where it's safe to do so, you could just go to them and say, here's the story I'm making up in my head right now. I know it's probably not true, but I need to find that out. I need to test it. Is this what's going on? So, shitty first draft. If you feel yourself flailing, what is the story in your head? Clarify that story and test it to see if it's true or not. And most likely that tiger will turn out to be a paper tiger.